Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering. Here we have Brian on a Sultai Midrange, Bug Midrange versus John on Black-Red Reanimator. That Chancellor getting revealed, and Ponder just being thrown right into the bin to clear that trigger. We'll see if that ends up... What would make sense for that? Well, let's see. Because if you have Force of Will, you're still able to pay Force of Will and then pay the 1. Well, we're going to find out immediately. Fatal Push, Euro, Ponder. The other Ponder is taken, so Brian on a mull. And now we're going to see... So we have Thoughtseize, Entomb, and Reanimate here, all on the first turn, grabbing a Gristlebrand. And let's see if John can pull off a first turn win, or if he'll just have to settle for a 7/7 flying lifelink creature that can draw 7 more cards the next time that he connects. It's probably over. A very, very fast deck. One that I actually like the splash in some metas of blue for show and tell with these builds. I'm also really interested in the Dark Ritual builds of Reanimator that are mono black, that also run a couple of Lake of the Deads. Those are really interesting, relying a bit more on Grave Titan and Massacre Worm as castable threats. That build's really fun. We got an Unmask. Just going after Brian. It is. Get that Fatal Push out of there. I believe that's Fatal Push. And looks like Chancellor going to the bin from John's hand. Just another card that can be brought back later. And Brian scooping it up as Reanimator just has a incredibly powerful first turn. Not quite winning, but as far as Brian's concerned, good enough to move on to the next one. Bug has no shortage of ways of dealing with Reanimator. Of course, counter spells and discard, both very potent strategies against combo decks in Legacy. And I like to think about it as multiple planes, multiple kind of areas that you can contest things, zones, whatever term you want to use. I guess I don't think about it out loud that much, so I don't have names for it per se. But when we're talking about the different areas where you can battle, you've got the zones of the stack with counterspells, you have their hand, you have the battlefield, you have going after the graveyard. There's a lot of different ways that you can contest things in a game of Magic. And Bug, can kind of do all of those things. Some of my favorite decks of all times did have, those counterspells and discard and card drawing and efficient threats. Not necessarily a ton of removal in some of my favorite decks. I'd usually rather just win than remove something. That's kind of what I've determined to be the better answer from my control deck, is if you can have some type of combo finish, that's generally better than trying to actually answer every little thing your opponent does. Here we go, Leyline. Just a single Leyline. No pregame from John and a Ponder, so this game's starting out much better for Brian. The task at hand for John is going to be to either answer this Leyline or hardcast something, possibly a threat, possibly some type of transformational sideboard, though that usually would be like a Leyline Helm combo, which, John without the Leyline side would be in a tough spot. Does have the Lotus Petal. Wear Tear is efficient removal. Dark Confidant comes down, which can be a little bit painful in a deck running Force of Will and Leyline of the Void. Dark Confidant does occasionally push you away from running Leylines, so it really is the strongest answer versus Reanimator strategies, or just graveyard strategies in general. Leyline just has incredible power, coupled with I mean, just unparalleled speed. It's literally before the start of the game, the thing's coming down. Doesn't get any faster than that. I have been liking Fairy Macabre at times. I think Surgical Extraction sees a lot more play. Surgical has some fringe benefits of being able to be used against some kind of glass cannon combo decks. And even just some of the stronger combo decks like Show and Tell. I mean, if you happen to snag a Show and Tell early, the ability to surgically extract it out of the deck does really complicate things. Some decks actually incapable of winning after that. Dark Confidant mercifully just gives an island. Those unstable lands. I actually really like the unsanctioned lands as well. I have a bunch of that product just sitting sealed. I suspect it'll do extremely well over time. Just for the lands. I mean, it's like a box of garbage plus 5 basics and 5 foil basics. I feel like those basics are going to end up being worth more than the initial MSRP of the box. Baleful Strix. You know, it draws a card. It does potentially stop things from going too sideways. Faithless Looting. Nowhere near as strong a card when you're exiling. When your graveyard is essentially just an extension of your hand, Faithless Looting is phenomenal. You know, when you're discarding reanimation targets. Boy. Yeah, those two. I was going to say, I don't remember seeing him discard 2 cards. Yeah, technically, Faithless Looting would remain on the stack until the cards are discarded. Then it would be exiled last. The order of cards in exile does not matter. We see a Thoughtseize with a Liliana, couple of Brainstorms, it looks like, from the Signature Series Spellbook. And now that the coast is clear and Brian is tapped out, just going to take out the Leyline and fire off an Entomb. This one for Sire of Insanity. And there's a Reanimate. I actually don't think this line wins. Yeah, I don't. I think Dark Confidant's just going to pull Brian right back into this game. Baleful Strix will happily trade with Sire of Insanity. I think this may be an error on John's part. Gristlebrain could have drawn a ton of cards. That would have been a much stronger option. Elish Norn would have been a perhaps difficult to deal with card. Is that an Unearth? I think that was a Modern Horizons reprint of Unearth. 2 turning sideways in the air. And I'm actually not seeing the life totals. Is John actually relying on Dark Confidant to kill Brian? Perhaps that's what we're going to see here. Abrupt Decay. Unearth to get it back. Just drawing a card which is just going to go away. And Leovold goes to the bin. Sire of Insanity. I think he's a 6/4. Land being played for John. Any Reanimate effect could potentially be very dangerous. And Uro showing up, gaining some life. And he will potentially put a fork in it once Brian's mana is sorted out. That basic swamp not doing him any favors. He needs 1 more green mana. Looks like a tundra or an underground sea. I guess that's an underground sea. Yeah, it's bug. I'll be all right. It's an underground sea, an island, and a trop, so he needs one more green. Sire of Insanity turns sideways. And now Animate Dead. Gonna bring back Chancellor. Brian's okay, potentially. He does have a couple of Baleful Strix. Not usually the type of removal you're hoping for in this matchup. The green has arrived in Euro. Hopping out of the graveyard to gain Brian some life. He's got to pay one more. Thankfully that swamp is around. John remembering his trigger. It's not like a Sphere of Resistance. It's actually a trigger that has to be remembered. And, yeah, living dangerously here. Opting to swing with the Baleful Strixes. Just pushing through damage. Sadly, we don't have the life totals on camera. Looks like John's going to just take that damage. It feels like there's no way Brian's actually in danger here, having twice used Uro to gain life. And now, I guess John would be dead to the crackback, so we are on to the next one. And on to game number 3. John's going to have the play. Very dangerous. Oh, but Leyline can potentially hold this together. Chancellor of the Annex for John. Yeah, in that last game, definitely feels like it was incorrect to be using that Ponder. But Brian still getting there. Couple of Bloodstained Mires. Chancellor's triggers. I mean, sometimes you do want to just jam something into a Chancellor. But, you can still pay the 1. If you have Force of Will or Force of Negation. It is often better. And now Serenity now. Gonna look to clear. Leyline of the Void will also punish playing a Baleful Strix to a degree. Oh, brutal. Abrupt Decay, stopping the Serenity right in its tracks. John was so close to freeing himself from this Leyline, but this has turned in a totally different direction as Abrupt Decay, a card that many players would sideboard out if they have better options. It is worth noting, I mean, obviously we just saw there's utility with the Serenity, but it can also hit in an Animate Dead. So Abrupt Decay not nearly as dead as some players might think, though there are often better cards in the sideboard. And now, Aware. That one does stick, and that clears the Leyline. John is drawn into that with the Faithless Looting, but he has no graveyard as of yet. Oh, wow. What a hand. He's got the Entomb Reanimate. Unbelievable. So good. Last card in hand is the Reanimate. Does Brian have an answer to this? No. Gristlebrand hopping out of the graveyard. And John going to go ahead and draw 7 cards. Unmask, still an option. You might as well potentially disrupt Brian's hand. Lotus Petal into additional discard also could be fine. Faithless Looting. Now he's already used a... Oh, what are we seeing here? Unmask. Okay, so unmasking before the Faithless Looting had even resolved. A Ponder taken. We see Dark Confidant and Brainstorm, I believe. And another Unmask. This one taking the Brainstorm. Dark Confidant does a lot of card drawing, but not compared to Gristlebrand. he does show up. Wasteland looks to set John back, but I mean, he's got such an incredible advantage here. Now he's paid for Thoughtseize. I'm sorry, he's paid for Reanimate and Gristlebrand, but now he's gained back the 7, and he may be able to just ride this Gristlebrand out, just swinging a couple of times. That is the most likely scenario. He may opt to draw. I mean, I guess once you've gained your 14 life back, there's really not much harm in drawing 7 cards. It's fine. It's not like you have Force of Will that you can draw into. I think it's probably fine to draw some cards here. Baleful Strix, uncastable. Oh, gross. Uncastable. That basic forest, basic swamp, no blue mana at all. Oof, that is rough. As Gristlebrand will end up dealing the final damage. As Brian just... no mana to play those cantrips. They're so key to finding answers. I mean, you generally don't want to be trying to answer Gristlebrand, but no chance when your mana base doesn't cooperate there in Game 3. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.